Hi, Anooshay. Thank you so much for joining me, taking the time to be here. Really appreciate it. This is Anooshay Arif. She is the CFO of Car First, which is the first of its kind online platform for car purchases in Pakistan. Thanks for taking the time, Anooshay.
Hi, Priya. No, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, how do you go from being a consultant at EY, working in that sector, to moving into tech? How did that happen for you?
So it's a big move for me because my past has been very core auditing, consulting, all in very it was accounting practice as such, and I hadn't really worked in industry or in the tech sector a lot. But I've always really been inspired by technology over time. So at a very early stage, even back in university, there used to be this Farmville, this Facebook game called Farmville. So I used to play it. And at that time, there was a concept of actually using real money to buy virtual products in the game. So it was at that time, it was really, really new. Now it's very usual.
That's
So we had to write a dissertation and I wanted to do it on something unusual, so I picked up accounting in the digital age as a topic because tech was moving so quickly that accounting standards along with several other things just couldn't keep up. So when Farmville introduced those virtual products, there was no accounting treatment for it, and it was in an accounting world it was very exciting thing, like this new thing that Farmville's got and don't even know how to account for it because there's no set standard as to how it has to be done. So since then, it's always been exciting for me to see that technology changes so fast that everything else just couldn't keep up. And after that, I actually audited a couple of clients which were in the tech sector, and every year we used to go audit them. Everything had changed; they evolved so quickly. So worked there. And when I moved to Pakistan in consultancy, I noticed that a lot of things in Pakistan were behind or not as advanced as to the Western world, which obviously you can imagine. And the only thing that can actually take us into the future and actually give us a shot to be on par with the rest of the Western world was technology, because we can skip a lot of steps in between and actually get to the end stage if we evolve pretty quickly. So always wanted to do something that was very, very innovative and one of its kind. So when I was working at EY, this opportunity at Car First came up. I researched it a lot. It was a risky move as well because at that time, Car First was a startup and wasn't acquired by OLX as it is now.
Yeah.
But I wanted to take on the challenge and at least try and see what all of this fuss was about. So went into Car First, and it's been a roller coaster ever since. I really enjoyed it. So Car First is the first online trading platform for cars and the first transactions platform as well, where anyone can go sell a car, get paid within 45 minutes, and it's something that was just not available in Pakistan. It was very old-fashioned industry as such, where if you sell a car, you had to wait a couple of days to actually get paid. So this is something very, very innovative. So it's been really exciting since I've been here.
That's wonderful. So not a conventional journey at all. Through this time, did you have any mentors that kind of guided you and encouraged you? Being in finance in itself, I'm assuming, can be challenging. It's not a very female-centric industry to say, or profession. But then to segue into tech, which is kind of known, especially in Pakistan, to be a fairly male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
Were the people that supported you and encouraged you?
So over the years, had a couple of mentors. Mentorship is something that's really, really close to me myself because I've had really good mentors since I've started, and I try to mentor my own team and the people I work with as well a lot. So I feel there are little lessons that you learn from your mentors as you grow and as you go through that journey. So, like for example, my first manager at EY, really, I've learned a lot from him. And one of the things that has stuck with me is I remember there was this deadline that we had. There was an audit deadline and global client, really big deadline, but there was some really unexpected roadblocks, which So we knew we would miss that deadline. There was no way we could ever meet that deadline. So I was really, really stressed out. It's the first deadline I'm going to miss. It will be a disaster and everything. But during that time, said to me that it's not the end of the world. You'll miss the deadline. We know what happened. What happened. So just need to learn from adversity, learn how to overcome these roadblocks. So I think that is something that has always, always stuck with me. And then later, when I moved to Pakistan as well, I've had actually I've been lucky to have some really, really good mentors who I've worked with a lot while I've been here, and who have guided me and supported me, really encouraged me as well to actually pursue what I actually want to pursue, and work towards what I want to work towards, like tech, something unusual, something where I can actually make a change, even if there's changes, something that has impact.
Yeah.
So really worked with really good people over time. And I think it's really important to actually also have informal mentors or your informal support system who actually help you, uh, encourage you to work forward. So for me, my parents have been really, really, really supportive. Never actually held me back and just allowed me to do whatever I wanted, which is sort of unusual within Pakistan, especially. So I had a lot of opportunities. And even now, when I go to my parents over the weekend, I tell my dad every single thing that happened at work, and then he gives me his perspective on it. So had a really good like support system at home as well.
That's wonderful. That's so nice that you touched on that, actually, Anooshay, because I think there's a misconception of what media portrays of Pakistani families, especially to the Western world. And, when I first moved here, a lot of people were surprised that I was from Pakistan. I still get, oh, were you born and raised here? Oh, your accent's a little different, but you're very American. Oh, you're very progressive. Um, and my answer to that often is, well, no, there's people that look like me that live in Pakistan, and what's portrayed in Western media is to their convenience, right? We actually come from families, there are people and there are men and fathers and brothers and husbands who are very supportive and lift us up. And that's how I've been able to be where I am. And it sounds like, it's very similar for you, where your father's been a huge support. So I think it's also really important as I'm kind of doing this series to represent that in some ways as well, right? There's women that are making strides in Pakistan, but there's an entire system that is supporting them. There are people that are lifting them up, and that's really wonderful to hear. So this is a little bit of a segue from like the positivity of things, but this is industry wide, right? This is not specific to Pakistan. What are some of the challenges that you face being a woman in tech? Is there stuff that you think is specific to your gender?
I think in terms of challenges, the biggest challenge that I have faced is just the people around me, the people I work with. They're not really used to working with females, and especially female leadership. So it's just something that doesn't come naturally to them. It's something very unusual, like a female CFO. We've not really met many before. So that gender diversity is something that's really, really unusual over here, especially. But even globally, I was reading an article the other day which mentioned that 12% of CFOs in the world are female. So that is a really, really low statistic in itself. But within Pakistan, this is only 1.8%. It's just really, really, really low. So I think this is something we need to work with, work towards collectively to actually bring this up, because there's so many people who are actually really, really talented, can be up for it, but a lot of situations and a lot of circumstances due to which they can't actually progress to the next stage. So I think in terms of challenges, the biggest challenge is actually to have that support system around you for others as well, who actually encourage you to go for what you want to go for. Not just do the usual thing, get married. Very easy in Pakistan to actually just get married after you graduate and then settle down. If that's what you want, very good for you. But if that's what you don't want, you need to have that support system. But in this corporate life over here, female in the workplace, there are not many females. So it's something that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people over here.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not surprised to hear that. It's not something that comes naturally even in the Western world. So you're not alone. um, interestingly, our CFO at my company, which is a Fortune 500 company, we were acquired by United Health Group. But our CFO, Elaine, is a woman, and she's a woman of color. And I am so impressed by her because you don't see that very often, especially in the C-suite. But in Pakistan, to have found that, especially at a startup of your stage, that then went to get acquired by OLX, which is not a small company, I think really does speak volumes about, clearly the founders are taking it seriously. Do you feel like you faced bias while you've been in meetings or boardroom conversations, or just generally navigating the waters? Do you think that there's a bias you've witnessed?
There is definitely a bias within Pakistan because I've often been in a lot of meetings where I'm the only female in the meeting. It's all men, both when I was in consulting and even sometimes right now in tech as well. So at that time, when you enter a meeting, the biggest bias is people don't consider you to be at a senior level. So
Mm.
they automatically assume you're the most junior person in the room. You're there to take minutes, take notes, and so on. So
Hmm.
that bias, I've actually had to work to actually overcome that bias from other people's perspective. Because when I walk into a meeting a couple of times this was not at EY or Carfus, this was a client of mine. The client would just assume that the person next to me, if it's a male, he's senior to me and talk to him rather than talk to me. So
Mm.
that is something really, really bothered me. So I actually worked towards making sure they know it can be a female who can be the more senior person in the room.
Yeah.
So that is something that I've faced a lot over here as well.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. You know, I was in two meetings today where I had two different men speak over me, and I had a total Kamala Harris moment where I was like, I'm still speaking. And then I had to catch myself and be like, okay, tone down the aggro a bit, but it happens.
Yeah.
They're not comfortable with women being in leadership roles, but I like to believe that's not going to be the case moving forward. I think that there's change that we're seeing, hopefully. Tell me a little bit about culture. So, you work in an office, you've got a lot of, well, pre-COVID, all of us worked in offices, but
Yeah.
hopefully at some point we will again.
Hopefully.
I'll tell you, here in the Valley, something that me and women that I work with, and actually some of the men that I work with also talk a lot about, is this bro culture. And it's, you're in a meeting, and for the first like 3 minutes, the guys like shoot the shit. They talk about stuff, they make jokes, and it's not a very inclusive kind of conversation, especially when you as a woman are running the meeting, trying to catch the attention of the group, but then you've got a bunch of dudes that are just being dudes. Um,
Yeah.
what's that like in Pakistan, and what do you think are the advantages, or what type of culture do you feel female leadership can set so that we see less of that?
So as you've mentioned, like the informal chit chat at the start of a meeting, I've exactly experienced that over here as well. So at the start, you tend to feel a little excluded
Mm.
because it's a very male-centric conversation that they're having. You try to be part of it. Sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot. So that is something that I have experienced as well over here. But I think one thing that we really, really need over here is to actually train the male leaders as well to actually how to be more inclusive and more collaborative, so they know what the other side faces and they can actually overcome it. I worked with this organization called Male Champions of Change, uh, I think around 2 years ago, where it was a client of mine. So where their whole agenda was actually signing up male champions or male leaders, male CEOs, and telling them what the females face in the workplace and making them actually lead the change as to bringing a very wholesome environment for both genders, and actually training them and training their organizations as to how to deal with everything and how to overcome these challenges that females face as well. So that was like really, really insightful for me. And I think in terms of the culture change that female leadership brings, it's a very collaborative and a very collaborative environment, significantly more collaborative than like very traditional male leadership. But having said that, I still feel if you have a very effective male leader or female leader, they can overcome this pretty easily. So I've worked with people, male, like my last male boss as well, really, really good in terms of bringing everyone in including everyone within the conversation. So I think if you have an effective male leader as well, he can be really good in terms of setting the culture for everyone. Not very easy to find, but there are people like that. I
Yeah,
think if people are well trained, it won't actually be the gender that dictates the culture. It will be people and the person that dictates culture.
that's wonderful. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Um, on that note, I think I spoke to you about this a little bit, but Car First actually has a very female heavy C staff. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but a lot of your colleagues are women. Now, do you think that was intentional? Is your founder, CEO, is that something that you guys talk about? Is it something that's front and center, or do you think it just kind of organically happened because they were the most qualified people?
So we're really proud of this fact. Actually, 55% of our leadership, so 5 out of 9 people are female within Car First. So very unusual globally as well, especially in Pakistan.
Very
Very,
much.
very. So it was absolutely not intentional. It just happened to be. We just happened to have a very balanced mix of genders. So we've really, really focused on talent and actually promoting people and hiring people who are best for the job.
Yeah.
Gender is something that's not really considered when you're interviewing someone or meeting someone. If they're good, they're good. You hire them. So we don't really have a quota as such as to we'll hire this percentage of female leaders, this percentage of male leaders. So we'll just hire whoever's the best for the job. So for us, it happened to be more than 50% female. So never actually focused heavily on it. So just grown naturally. Example is myself. I joined CarFirst as a head of FP&A a couple of years ago. Then I moved to head of finance and now to CFO. So just grown organically within the team rather than just joining from the outside to meet any quota as such on gender diversity.
That's one.
So happy to work in such a gender diverse team. Brings out a lot of out of the box ideas and really good suggestions, like very different viewpoints.
So as in terms of being, kind of somebody who's moved from a non-traditional career into a tech career, and it's an interesting switch to have made. What's some of your advice that you would give to young women that are, graduating college or, maybe working at banks and are like, "Ah, I don't know, I might want to get into tech."
I think the biggest thing is to just believe in yourself and do what you actually want to do. Don't overthink it. I used to make a lot of pro and con lists before making the big decision. So a person I used to work with before just told me not to, sometimes don't just rely on these lists and actually go with your gut. So
Yeah.
my move to car first was my gut feeling in to an extent as well. My list said not to go to car first. It was a very, EY was much more safer.
Yeah.
But sometimes just you have to go with your gut and do what you really want to do. Don't overthink as to what will happen X years in the future. Should I go? Should I not go? Should I just stay in a very safe bubble or a safe career? Sometimes you have to take the leap and actually go for what you really want to do. If it pans out, really, really good. If it does not pan out and if it doesn't go well, you at least gave it a shot. Otherwise, you'd never have tried it. So even if my move to car first didn't go as well as it went, I'd be happy I actually tried it. If
Agreed.
I didn't try it, I would never even know what would have happened. And it would always be a what if. So that what if really, really bothered me. So I think the biggest thing is just to believe in yourself, do what you really, really want to do, and have a really good support system, like an informal support system at home as well. within your family, within your friends, and a very good professional network in place as well, because that professional network will help you. And within that professional network, have a mentor who will guide you, have a sponsor as well, like someone who's really senior who will advocate for you and who will actually make big things happen, make you get the big project, what you wanted to do. So have both of these and actually just go for it. It's nothing to be afraid of. My move was risky, but panned out well. So I
Absolutely.
think
Yeah, it seems like it's worked out really well. And, I think you've talked about a few things that are very near and dear to me. And I think it is so important. I talk a lot about instinct when I'm interviewed. I talk a lot about going with your gut. And sometimes, it's like, really? That's what you're going to do? I mean, I've built an entire career on that. I dropped out of college and said, I'm going to go work in tech because they offered me a full-time job at a startup. And it's panned out well for me. Well, thank you so much for your time, Anooshay. I appreciate it. This was so fun. I love that we connected about Farmville. And it's funny, actually, the CEO of OLX was one of my as a childhood friend, but also he was one of the GMs on Castleville back in the day,
right.
Bilal. So we know him in common, and it's hilarious because I'm sure like the story of Zynga has carried over overseas to Dubai and to Pakistan. So that's always fun to hear. But thank you. I am so excited to see what you do next. And you are truly just very, very inspirational. And I'm excited that there's more and more women like you that, younger girls can look up to, because I know I didn't have that growing up, especially in Pakistan. So more power to you.
Thank you. Glad to be here. And I hope so too. It's more inclusion in Pakistan and globally as well. But really, really good speaking to you.